Everybody, welcome to the NCSA podcast on NCSA Radio. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I am Sam Stecker, Superintendent of East Butler Public Schools. We also have my good friend
Mark Johnson, Principal of Bryan Elementary in Kearney, Nebraska.
And we are honored to have Lisa Utterback with us today. We're actually at the NCSA Principals Conference, and Lisa was good enough to be our keynote address today and did an outstanding job and said a lot of things that really resonated with a lot of our attendees. I had our buddy Mark Hagee was sitting next to me, and he leans over and he goes, Sammy, she's legit. So
that's like one of the best compliments.
That's a good
ever.
compliment. So
yeah.
Lisa, I would describe her as an educational leader extraordinaire with a very profound and inspirational background story, which she can do a much better job than I. So, Lisa, thanks for being part of our podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in extreme poverty in a single home in Omaha, Nebraska, without a father. My mother struggled with drug addiction and still currently does. She spent a great deal of time in and out of the penal system and is currently in the York Penitentiary for Women. And I really began to plant my roots and find a purpose for my life in the walls of the public school system in Omaha, Nebraska, which led me to the passion of wanting to become a teacher. I currently am in my 17th year as an educational leader with the Omaha Public Schools. I serve in various roles from a teacher to a dean to an assistant principal to a principal for 5 years at Miller Park Elementary School, where collectively we came together as a school community and beat the odds in every facet possible, from high academic achievement to athletics to really empowering a community to believe in education. I currently serve with 3 other outstanding executive directors, and we supervise and work alongside principals to build their capacity and support their needs in any area possible.
Now, I know you and I both have a ton of questions, and normally I'd say, Mark, you want to start or should I? But I have one I want to jump in right away. So I'm hijacking you, Mark, if that's okay.
That's a great idea.
One of the things that you thought was so important for people to hear, and I think really resonated with a lot of people, is that as a principal, if you are going to affect change in your building, you have to walk the walk. And I think that's such an important phrase, and I think that's so essential to being a good leader. But what I'm wondering from your perspective, because Mark and I have talked about this, that when you walk into a school in about 5 minutes, you can pick up on the culture and the climate of that school.
Correct.
So what I'm wondering from your perspective, when you walk into a building and you go, oh my goodness, this principal is walking the walk, what kind of things are you seeing that are indicators for you to go, they're doing things right, this principal's doing the things right in the school, I know they're walking the walk? What kind of stuff do you see?
Well, you see principals and having conversations with teachers about their instructional practices. You see a principal walking in the hallway knowing the names of students. When they encounter a parent, they know who the parent is. They know who. You see a principal, if there's a piece of garbage on the ground, the principal picks it up. You can see when a principal walks into a cafeteria, how the students respond. You can see, most importantly, just the walk of the principal and the interactions, particularly in the relationships they have with people.
Right.
And, we always think about the big things that happen in school. And, everybody has to have a vision and a mission statement and we're high academic expectations and all those things that we have to foster in a school and get teachers to believe and students to believe in themselves. But it's also those little things that you do on a daily basis that make a difference. And you told that story today about the trash in the hallway, which may seem insignificant, but just share a little bit about what you noticed when somebody walked over the trash and kind of how you handled that.
Well, I was at a school visit not too long ago, and I'm really big on, if you spot it, you got it. A principal has to lead the way through their actions. And there was a Reese's peanut butter on the floor as we were walking in the hallway. My first instinct was to pick it up, because as a principal, I would pick up any garbage that was outside of the school on my way in, and anything that I saw in the hallway, I would pick up. That emulates the tone in the building. When kids see you do that, they immediately want to do it because they want you to see them do it, and it just creates an environment where people really value not throwing garbage in our school community. And I was anxious to see if the principal was going to pick up the Reese's peanut butter cup wrapper. The principal literally stepped over it, and we went about 15 more students walking down the hallway. I watched a teacher step over it, and then kids just step on it. About 5 minutes into the restroom break of a classroom, a teacher and the principal at the same time pointed to the wrapper to pick it up. I have to tell you, I was extremely mortified, because a student is the piece of garbage, but you're not. What message would have been sent if the principal would have went over and picked it up, or the teacher, and the kids would have saw that, had the opportunity to see that principal demonstrate that action. And I knew at that point that I needed to have a courageous conversation with that school leader as to what were they thinking. And after after our school visit, we sat down and we had a conversation. I just asked the principal, why did you step over it? And she got very emotional and said, I just didn't want to pick it up. Mm-hmm. And I said, because I have a great relationship with that individual, and we have a relationship of trust and respect, and they truly believe that my job is to help them, we began to really have a courageous conversation about your actions and behaviors every single day set the tone of what the expectations are in the building. If you expect kids to pick it up, you have to do it too. And pretty soon, when you start doing it, kids will see it. Everybody else will start picking up garbage, and you won't have it in your hallways.
It's such a great story, because again, it seems insignificant. It's a piece of trash in the hallway, mm-hmm. But to have the principal and the teacher step over it and ask somebody mm-hmm. else to do it. I mean, really, the model is, if it's good enough, if we believe in it, mm-hmm. we want a nice school, a clean school. We're all in this together. Mm-hmm.
Role played with the principal that what I would have done is I would have picked up the garbage and told the kids, you know what, boys and girls, this is our home.
A message and a piece of garbage, right? a big message and a little piece of garbage.
Yeah, I love how, I mean, it seems insignificant, but when you take that one element and translate it to, it's not just this piece of trash. This is no trash zone. We're going to take care of that.
That's right.
I love that.
That's right. And it's the little things extra set of hands in the cafeteria because you're in there anyway, washing tables, asking a kid to help get a rag and help you. When you're outside and you valuing that you don't want them to walk through the snow. Putting up bulletin boards. I took great pride in doing a bulletin board in our foyer every month, student of distinctions, and the students actually knew that I valued that process. And so the teachers cleaning up the staff lounge after a holiday meal and celebration.
Which can be messy.
Yes, cleaning up, absolutely. We were short a secretary for a period of time due to an illness, and helping put mail in the mailbox, making copies for a teacher if they needed, just doing all the things that need to be done to serve the teachers and serve the community.
A few years ago at NCSA Administrator Days, they brought in the name of Mike Sharonbrock. commenting how there was a group that wanted to do a field trip and they didn't do a very good job with permission slips. But she said the parents of the students I serve, they're just glad the kids are somewhere, and they don't always follow through with getting the permission slips back. And you told a story this morning where you talked about a mentor of yours that you spent a lot of time with, and you said, here's the thing about families with poverty sometimes. They never once asked why I was there, which, and I just had a conversation with somebody and went, I had this exact conversation. So what are some things that you do to get those families that are more at risk, that, their priority is, are we going to be able to pay rent? Is there going to be food on the table? Are these stamps coming? And sometimes they don't worry about the rest because it's not their immediate need. How do you foster that investment back in their child's school community and that school experience?
That's a very good question, and that's a challenge that many educators in throughout the country face. But the bottom line is, if you don't bring that to the table and have those conversations with parents, that, I understand that your struggle right now is this, but the reality is, do you want your child to struggle? And you have to have a vested interest in your child's education. And, when there were maybe discipline issues or we needed a parent to come to report card conferences, first of all, that's not the first time that you meet a parent. You're
Absolutely.
out there in the morning greeting parents, opening car doors. I could tell you a list of principals in the Omaha Public Schools that they open car doors for kids and those kinds of things. You greet parents after school. You have conversations. It's literally about letting parents know that I understand that this is what you're struggling with, but really, is this what you want for your child? I promise you, if you give your child the support that they need by being here when we need you, you're going to have a greater return. And also having those conversations with kids too. I mean, kids are the messengers. Kids go home and they share in their community all the things that are happening in the school, and they encourage their parents to come in. And then also just getting real with people. If you don't bring to the forefront what it is that you're trying to get done, it's like everybody's looking at the elephant, but nobody's saying it's in the room.
Gotcha.
And poverty can be a real challenge. I mean, as you know, and you talked about how it can't be an excuse, though, what kids do. And you mentioned Carol Dweck and growth mindset, which is a pretty big buzzword right now, buzz concept going around. And you had an interesting take on that. Talk about that.
Well, I have, first and foremost, the utmost respect for Dr. Carol Dweck and the work that she's done, because it's really opened the eyes to a lot of people. But in my professional opinion, a growth mindset is really recognizing potential. And I had a mentor that impressed upon me, you don't have to live like your mother. You can be better because you have something inside of you to do well. And that's really what the growth mindset is there might be a little bit of verbiage that changes, you can and you will, but that's really about looking at the potential of somebody. And the word potential has been around forever in the dictionary. It's believing that somebody has the talent to be greater if they do this and that. And Carol Dweck has done an impeccable job of spotlighting that and bringing it to the national attention of people. And I just think
the state test over the last 5-6 years.
Yes.
And you've had significant gains in
Yes.
those scores. So what do you attribute that to?
I don't think there's one particular thing that we can attribute the success across the board with our NISA scores. I think it's a substantial amount of hard work by every single stakeholder, from the engineer that opens the building in the morning to making sure that the building looks presentable, secretaries, to the kitchen staff that serves breakfast, to the teachers and the paraprofessionals that provide that ongoing support. I think it was a combination of, first of all, letting people know where we're at and where it is that we want to go, and really getting buy-in and an understanding of what our purpose is. Because you don't become a teacher just to teach. You become a teacher to inspire and make a difference. What does that look like? What does it sound like each and every day in your practices and your relationships? And then just a leader walking the walk, doing the things, and really getting kids to believe. That was, I think, the number one thing, is getting people to believe that we can do this. And I think in education, with all the adversity that we face and challenges, because poverty brings about a lot of different challenges for different people. You can have two hardworking parents making a good wage and 4 kids and still facing a great deal of adversity. It's really about setting those differences aside and saying, this is what my focus is. We're going to eliminate the excuses because we can do this. And we have a purpose here, and our purpose is to do A, B, and C, and D. And when we do this, we're going to celebrate our success.
Did you have a hard time getting some teachers to believe that the kids could achieve this?
Absolutely. Because again, they didn't believe in the potential of the kids. The teachers didn't have, quote unquote, that growth mindset. And so I began to have those courageous conversations. Why are you here?
Right.
You don't come in here just to sit to teach arithmetic or writing. You're coming here to change the lives of these children. If you do not believe in what you're doing, this isn't the place for you. And the teachers begin to believe that too. And when you believe in what you're doing, it's unstoppable.
One of the first slides that you showed today was a list of all the responsibilities that a principal has and all the various roles, from sometimes you were going to jump in as a paraprofessional to sometimes you're going to function as athletic director. And it was a long list. Mm-hmm. And just before Mark could make it, we started recording, you and I were talking about getting 300 emails a day and making sure that you're disciplined, that you don't leave the office with 298 emails still in there. As a professional, as a leader in education, I think one of the things our principals staying balance in their lives, mm-hmm. that I have all these roles and I have these responsibilities, and I'm going to get 300 emails a day or however many it may be. What kind of advice would you have for principals, knowing all the responsibility they have, knowing they have all those elements that you talked about of accountability and responsibility, yet they still have families, they still have children of their own, they still have community responsibilities. How do you maintain balance with all of that?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out, particularly working with 21 principals in the Omaha Public Schools. For me, I have to take care of myself mm-hmm. first, and I'm really big on working out every day and having my time to find that balance mm-hmm. and run and reflect on what my day needs to be. I think most importantly, when you're actually, the most important thing is really the relationships that you have with people, and they don't come to fruition behind the desk. Your relationships are developed and maintained, and your expectations come out of your pores. People can smell what it is you're about when you're walking in the hallways. They can tell, they can taste success, and they look at you and they know that you're the ambassador and the light of hope. So I think during the day when you're actually with kids, I think it's imperative to be in classrooms, working with kids and working with teachers, supervising lunch, but also finding that critical time throughout the day to check emails and those kinds of things. And then I think it's all about routine. You have to get into a routine. Like, do I come in? I was working with a principal a few weeks ago who spends an extensive amount of time after hours on the job, but yet doesn't check emails during the day. And I said, what would be a good routine for you so you're not here at 11 o'clock at night? And I said, what about coming in an hour early from 7 to 8 and just setting the tone that you're not bothered? Well, people bother me. Well, if you let them know what your purpose is from 7 to 8, that you do not want to be bothered, you're going to shut the door to check your emails and then start off your day. And then maybe you have to get into a routine, a half an hour a day. Unless there's a major crisis, you're going to shut your door and do whatever it needs to do from a managerial perspective. And then at the end of the day, figuring out what your routine is. And every school is different, every community is different, and every job really is different, but it boils down to routines and being organized. If you don't have routines and you're not organized, you're pretty much going to be operating in crisis mode every day.
It's really refreshing to hear you say sometimes your office door my door's not always open. Sometimes it's closed, and sometimes it's closed because you're in there with me and you deserve that privacy. And I think people, as principals, we all strive to be accessible. And we strive to be in the hallways, and we strive to be all those different roles that you mentioned for the people that we are shoulder to shoulder with. But sometimes I need to take care of some business for me that's really for everybody.
Yes.
by golly, that door's got to be closed to pull it off.
That's right.
And I think principals need to hear that. You have permission to close the door and take care of business, but you better not do that 6 hours a day and be hiding.
And you're precisely correct. And it's also about letting people in your school community know the purpose of that.
Absolutely.
If they understand that on Fridays at this time, this is what you're doing, because being a manager, making sure that the bills get paid, making sure that the emails get checked, that the newsletter gets done, you can't do that when you're constantly being interrupted. It's about letting people know that you're going to carve out this time unless there's an emergency, and they respect that.
Absolutely.
But even taking it a step further, I can remember my first year as a principal, my son started playing competitive sports. And I started sharing stories with the secretaries that I'm feeling awful, I'm not getting to his games. And they said, we want to know what the schedule is. The secretaries and the security guard and our pack facilitator would tell me 15 minutes before I was going to be out the door. They would find me, take my walkie-talkie, push me in my office, and literally push me out the door, because they valued what I brought to the table, but they also valued the importance of my son. And when you have a collective mission and you value the things just like you do as a principal, if your teacher has a child at another school and they're having the holiday program or the winter, don't you make arrangements to cover their classrooms so they can do that? It has to work both ways.
Absolutely.
I think about a leader too. You mentioned something about, two aspects of a leader, but I think a lot about leadership, and a leader just needs to surround themselves with great people who can do great things, and then just cheer them on and do that as well. And so what happens when you find people that maybe aren't great at what they do?
Well, first and foremost, there's people like that everywhere. It's a matter of, do they have the potential? Do they have the skill and the will to do the job? If they have the will and they lack the skill, you can learn skills. I believe you can teach kids how to read from Basil's from the 1970s. If you have the will, you can train skill. If they have skill and they don't have the will, you cannot foster will. It's really about tips and having those with people saying that you're not happy and it shows. You're not living up to the expectations that we have. Let me help you get to a place where you're going to be successful. Because there are people that are great teachers, but not in certain settings. And it's really a matter of, it's your duty. You can't have a weak link on the team, because if you do, a principal is the leader. A leader builds skills. If you have somebody that's not going to carry the weight, it's going to affect the critical mass. And, that's why we have informal plans. That's why we have contracts that we renew every year. But then that's also why we owe it to those people, too, that might be in the wrong positions. Because I believe everybody innately comes into the profession because they want to make a difference. It's just maybe they're not in the right setting to do that.
And I love it too, because, you talk about potential. So there was that word again. You talk about potential with teachers. So there you are talking about teachers that have potential. And there you are talking about teachers talking with kids that have potential. And it just all comes down from you modeling it with teachers modeling it with kids. Yeah.
When you look at the teachers that are coming out of our universities throughout the country, they're not prepared for the task of teaching the children and serving the families that are in. I was not prepared to teach. I became a successful teacher because I had experiences and could immediately relate to the kids, but not everybody has those experiences. And so it's really a matter of getting into those classrooms and building the instructional capacity of teachers, and also showing them the way, modeling, and helping them build that skill level. Because most of them come in with the will to want to change the world. They leave the profession because somewhere their principal has not instilled in them the skills to do it.
So you were a teacher first. You were a fifth grade teacher.
Yes, for 7 years.
Yep, and then you were a principal, assistant principal, and then principal. Yeah,
I was a teacher for 7 years. Worked at the district office in Title I for a year. Was a dean of students in a middle school for 1 year, an assistant 1 year, and then a principal.
Do you think a principal needs to be a teacher at one point in their career?
I do. I believe that you have to, I think the most impactful leaders are people that have done the work. It goes back to that old cliche is, how can you have a cigarette in your mouth and tell somebody not to smoke? Just like I think some of the most strongest people that impact our profession from a professional development perspective are people that have done the work. And I'm not saying that some people cannot be effective coming in from the outside, maybe successful business leaders, because coaching is coaching. It's just tailoring it to meet your audience and bringing people together. A leader is a leader. It's just understanding the challenges and the adversity that our teachers face.
Right on. Mark, I'm about out of questions. Do you have any more that are burning in your heart?
Question.
Mark, it's got to be a good one if it's our closer. No pressure,
I'll see
my
what
friend.
I can do.
All right.
So when your head hits the pillow at night, how do you know it was a great day?
My best days are the days that I'm walking alongside principals, visiting classrooms, seeing them live and breathe the work. And you can see it come out in the teaching, and you can see the difference that they're making in kids. Those are the best days. And there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't miss that direct contact. But now I'm seeing that the executive directors, our team, are having a greater impact on the district through our empowerment of.
Awesome.
Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to be at our conference today. I think you absolutely had an impact, and it's going to make a difference in how people do some things, and I think you validated a lot of great things people are already doing. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast today.
Thank you.
The other thing I will throw out there, Mark, it's my understanding from our buddy Mike Delaney that he wants to help people tell their stories.
Yes.
So if you guys out there in podcast land, if that's what you want to call it, know somebody who has a great story like Lisa that NCSA Radio needs to get out there, and that we can all benefit from, and this can be part of our collective professional development. Don't be shy about letting us know. If you go to ncsa.org, pretty easy to find their contact information. Also, as always, NCSA probably has a great event coming up, and depending on when this airs, I don't know what it'll be, but if you look at their calendar, you're going to find something that's going to be worth your time, where you can connect with your peers and enhance that professional development so we can all stay passionate about what we do. Anything else, my friend Mark?
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.